guns. They've stopped. Stabilize your rear deflectors.
What's up, guys? This is Rob with another resin kit build. It's a studio scale Y-wing, and I'm looking forward to this one. It is a resin kit that I had bought online, and it's pretty nice, really big, heavy pieces, so it should be fun. It's going to be big kit. This is the front canopy area, and the cockpit's built in, so looking forward to this one. If you hear what sounds like bombs going off, it's 4th of July here, so there's a lot of fireworks going off in the background. I'm not living in a war zone. So I took all the parts out, I arranged them, and I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to put this thing together with plan of attack kind of situation. So I'm really confused as far as some of the parts go, but I'll have to straighten that out later. It didn't come with any instructions, or there's some parts that I think might be missing. I'm not really sure. So what I'm going to do is film me hacking this thing together. I've never built a Y-wing resin kit before. I built the Bandai Y-wing, which of course goes together perfectly, but this is much bigger. It's going to need a lot of support. It's going to need a lot more paint, a lot more detailing, and I'm going to light it, so there's going to be a lot of lighting going on. So I basically cleaned the parts up, and then I test drilled a couple of holes where I know I'm going to need to run wires. And I wasn't sure if this thing was solid resin or not, because it's heavy, but it's not. There's actual area in there. So I drilled a test hole, and it looks to me like the walls are really thick, so I'm going to have to drill a couple of holes and make a bigger hole here to get the lighting in for the cockpit and the fiber optics in, and also for the section where R2 goes in. So I test drilled that, and there's a hollow section in there, so you can see pieces falling all over the place. This is the fuselage, which has some detail on it, molded into it, and of course there's pieces that actually attach to it. There's not that many pieces in the kit, so I shouldn't have a problem figuring a lot of this out, but this piece I know goes here. There's the supports for the wings, for the engine nacelles, which are huge. These feel like they're hollow, so there shouldn't be a problem getting wire in there for lighting. The pilot looks pretty good. So it came with the pilot, some other parts here, the engine, the rear part, the cones. So I think it should be a pretty straightforward build. I think the problem is going to be putting it all together so it's really strong, and then supporting the ship with minimal, ideally like one post that I can support the ship. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to articulate this ship unless I come up with something else for the post, but this thing's probably going to weigh, I don't even know, probably 10 pounds when it's done, after I put this whole thing together. So should be a fun build, and hope you can stick around to see me get through it and see how it comes out, and I'm hoping it's going to turn out really well. So I'm going to clean up all of these parts. There's some excess resin on them, not a lot, so that won't take me too long. But I'm not really sure if I'm going to start with the front section. I might start with the front section and attach the neck piece, and then do all my lighting, and so I have all the lighting and wiring figured out, and then I can do the fuselage and the nacelles. So I think that might be a better plan. So I have to get a bigger hole in here first, and then drill a bunch of holes for the gauges and everything else that I'm going to light up in the cockpit area, so I can run all my fiber optic into this front section, and the fiber for R2 should be pretty easy I just have to figure out where I'm going to put all the lighting. If there's a bigger cavity in there, the LED to power all the fibers should fit easily in here. So I'm not seeing any problem there. And should have plenty of room in this thing for the minimal lighting that it's going to need. So see how it goes. Should be fun. I'll come back when I have something in progress. One more thing that I did forget. Is I don't know if the kit was supposed to come with any of the piping that goes on the ship. This has pipes all over the place. I don't know if that was not included, so I have to contact the seller and see if I have to scratch build this stuff myself. I'd rather not, but if I have to, I will. I just don't. I want to make sure that I'm not missing some parts that I should have. I don't know why they wouldn't include that, because there's a lot of detail parts that I don't want to have to make with bends and everything else. I have the styrene to do it, but that's going to add a lot more time to what I need to do here. So I'll have to find out what's going on. But I'll come back, let you know. Just to show you what I'm doing, cleaning up parts. I don't know if this would help anybody, but if you're experienced in building resin kits, you can fast forward this part, because I'm sure you know it. But for someone out there who decided to build a Y-wing and they got the kit and they're like, oh man, this is a lot of weird stuff on this thing and I'm not really sure the easiest way to do this, this is what I do. It's an option. You can try your own methods. Whatever works. Whatever you do, I would highly suggest wearing one of these as much as possible when you're working with resin, because a lot of times I forget to put this on, and it does make a difference because I can actually feel in my breathing if I'm not careful and not wearing one of these. So if there's going to be resin flying around, you may not even see it, but if you're sanding it, I would highly suggest wear some kind of a respirator. I know it's a pain in the ass, but I would suggest doing it just to be safe and keeping this stuff out of your lungs. So this piece, I cleaned up a bunch of parts, just a little sanding on the sides. The main part is when they pour these parts, sometimes they pour some extra resin, and this piece was obviously cast face down in a mold, and they may have poured too much resin like this. So this piece, it has an uneven surface on the back because it happens. I mean, you can see there's bubbles in this, so you probably used a fast curing resin, and there's just a little bit of extra resin on here. And if you put this part on, if you just sand around the edges, it's not going to sit right. You can see there's a gap, so you need to flatten this out. And a lot of times before you even cut off the, like in this case, before you even cut off the extra resin, I would sand this whole part down. And a lot of times what it will do is it would get rid of the excess resin right away, or at least make it a lot easier to clean the part up. I use a board with 100 grit sandpaper on here, and it's just a duct tape on there. It's not that tight, it's tight, but it's sitting flat and it won't move. So I can sand down these surfaces and make sure they're flat. And it takes a lot of resin away with the 100 grit. And you can vacuum off the, the paper when it gets clogged, and it will add up quick, the dust. And I either wipe it down, shake it off, or use this thing, which is like a little hand vac, which will clean up while I'm at it. And tidy up while I'm at it, huh? Yeah, I have that, and I have a shop vac on the wall that I use, so I keep my area free of resin if I can, and I wear a respirator. So this piece, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to kind of put some pressure on it. And I'm going to sand this thing until it's smooth on the back, but I'm not actually eating into the detail of the part. And you can see I'm taking away what's not flat pretty quickly. You can see the dust. You know, I'm not wearing a mask now because I'm talking, but I'm putting it back on. I'm just doing this part as an example. It's getting there. So that's pretty good. So that took all the excess resin off the back. It's nice and flat. The piece will go on. Probably a detail piece. I'm sure it sits on the hole somewhere. Somewhere. If I had my directions, I could find out. So I'm just going to clean this stuff up so it's not laying around. And then I have a compressor. I'm just blowing off the part. Of course that's going to go on, so I'll come back. I knew my compressor was going to come on while I was doing that. So this is 240 grit sandpaper, and I'm just kind of going along the edges real light. And I'm taking off the excess resin. Real light, nothing, I'm not really pushing down much on this. I'm just getting a nice clean edge. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. You can use files, you can use sanding blocks, whatever works. I just like using the sandpaper because I have a lot of control over it. So that's the finished piece. That one's ready to go on. And I have a bunch of other ones to do here. Some have more resin on them than others. Most of them are actually pretty good compared to some of the pours I've seen. Like something like this, I'm going to have to cut these pieces out and sand them down with a small file. So each of these pieces, it's going to take a while. It's a lot easier for me if I clean the parts up before I start building, because I don't want to have to do it later on. And if I forget and I need a part and I have to go and clean it, it's a mess. There's not that many parts on this kit again, like I said, so it's not a big deal for me to go through them all and clean them all up before I start building the actual model. So put something good on TV and just clean them all up.
Gold 5 to Red Leader.
Lost Tyree, lost Hutch.
I copy, Gold Leader.
They came from behind.